What if the investment strategy that most Americans swear by is actually costing them more than they'll ever earn from it? Not because it's a bad idea, but because nobody ever showed them the full picture. Two people, same savings, same income, same city. 20 years later, one of them built real wealth and the other built the feeling of wealth. And the difference has nothing to do with which investment sounds better at a dinner party. It has everything to do with a handful of numbers that most people never bother to write down. So today we're writing them down. All of them. Meet David and Sarah. Both 30 years old. Both earning $58,000 a year. Both managed to save $50,000. Same starting line, completely different finish. David has been watching real estate videos for 6 months. He's convinced that owning rental property is the fastest lane to financial freedom. Sarah has been quietly reading about index fund investing and letting the math speak for itself. Neither of them is wrong about everything, but one of them is about to make a mistake that won't show up on paper for at least 5 years. Let's find out which one. David takes his $50,000 and uses it as a 20% down payment on a $240,000 rental home in a solid working-class neighborhood. He locks in a 30-year mortgage at 7% interest. His monthly mortgage payment lands at about $1,270. He finds a reliable tenant almost immediately and signs a lease for $1,750 a month. On paper, that's $480 left over after the mortgage. David does the mental math in about 4 seconds and decides he's a genius. He tells his coworkers, he tells his family, he drives past the house on the way to the grocery store just because he can. Sarah takes that same $50,000, opens a brokerage account, puts it all into a total market index fund, and sets up a $300 automatic monthly contribution. Her coworkers ask her what she's investing in. She says index funds. They nod and go back to their lunches. Nobody is celebrating Sarah, but that's fine. Sarah isn't investing for applause. Here's where it gets interesting, because David's first year as a landlord genuinely looks amazing. Rent comes in every month. He's deducting mortgage interest and depreciation on his taxes and shaving real dollars off his tax bill. His property is building equity with every payment he makes. The neighborhood is appreciating. He patches a few small things, handles a couple of tenant requests, and calls it a successful year. Sarah's $50,000 grows to about $56,000 after a decent market year plus her contributions. There's no key in her pocket, no asset she can photograph, just a number going up on a screen. From the outside, David is winning, but we're not staying on the outside. By the end of year 3, David has collected just over $63,000 in gross rent. His mortgage payments total about $45,700. That leaves $17,300 on paper before a single expense. And now here come the expenses nobody puts on the YouTube thumbnail. Property taxes, roughly $2,800 a year. Homeowner's insurance, $1,400 a year. He had to replace a water heater in year 2. $100. He had to replace a water heater in year 2 and $1,100. He had 3 weeks of vacancy between tenants, which cost him about $1,312 in lost rent plus $550 to clean, repaint, and relist. And David is self-managing, which means he is working a second job he doesn't get paid for. After everything, David's real net cash flow over those 3 years is somewhere between $3,000 and $5,500. Not the $17,300 he calculated on his phone in the driveway. Sarah, meanwhile, has done absolutely nothing. Her portfolio has grown to approximately $78,000. She contributed $10,800 over those 3 years on top of her original deposit. The market averaged around 10% annually. No calls, no emergencies, no weekends lost. But here's the part that stock investors love to skip over, and we're not skipping it. David has leverage. He used $50,000 to control a $240,000 asset. His property has appreciated at roughly 3.5% per year and is now worth around $267,000. His equity, what he actually owns after subtracting the remaining mortgage, is pushing $60,000 to $68,000. That is real wealth created partly with someone else's money. That is something a brokerage account cannot replicate without taking on margin debt, which comes with its own completely different set of risks. Leverage is David's superpower. It is also his greatest vulnerability, because leverage works beautifully when prices go up, and it gets very quiet when they don't. Now let's fast forward to year 7, because this is where the two paths start to clearly pull apart. David is on his second tenant family. He's dealt with a backed up sewer line that cost $2,200 to fix. He's raised rent to $1,900, which helped, But his property taxes and insurance have both climbed with the market. His actual cash-on-cash return, the money he keeps after every real dollar goes out the door, is hovering between 3% and 5%. That's not a disaster. But it's also not the 20% his real estate mentor promised in the online course. Sarah's portfolio has grown from $50,000 to approximately $145,000. She added $300 every single month and never touched the principal. The compound curve is starting to bend upward, and it's going to keep bending. The gains on her gains are now generating more new wealth per year than her contributions. This is the part that nobody explains properly until it's already happening. By year 10, the scoreboard looks like this. David's property is worth somewhere around $340,000. His remaining mortgage balance is approximately $168,000. His equity sits at roughly $172,000. Over a decade, when you add up every real cost, mortgage interest paid, taxes, insurance, maintenance, capital expenditures, vacancy losses, David has put about $25,000 to $40,000 more into the property beyond his original down payment. But he controls an appreciating asset worth over $340,000, and he's been generating rental income the entire time. Sarah's portfolio is sitting at approximately $170,000 to $185,000. She put in $50,000 up front and $36,000 in contributions. Over 10 years, $86,000 total out of pocket. Everything above that number is pure compounding. She owns a piece of thousands of companies across the entire economy. Zero debt, zero tenants, zero repairs. At year 10, the total wealth of these two is surprisingly close. David might edge slightly ahead thanks to leverage. But here is what the spreadsheet doesn't capture. David has spent hundreds of hours managing his property. He took on a large mortgage. He bet everything on one house and one zip code. Sarah is diversified across the entire market and could sell her portfolio in 3 minutes if she needed to. Now let's go all the way to year 20, because this is where the story either confirms your strategy or forces you to rethink it completely. David's property is now worth somewhere between $460,000 and $490,000. His mortgage is nearly paid off. His equity has grown to roughly $420,000 to $470,000. Over 20 years of consistent rent increases, he's also generated a cumulative cash flow net profit after every real expense of somewhere between $50,000 and $90,000 above what he spent. That's real. That's meaningful. And in a strong appreciation market, the numbers push even higher. Sarah's portfolio at 10% average annual return with $300 monthly contributions has grown to approximately $440,000 to $470,000. Her total contributions over 20 years amounted to $122,000. Every dollar above that is compounding, doing exactly what compounding does when you leave it alone. In total net worth, they finish within striking distance of each other, both somewhere in the $420,000 to $490,000 range. The destination is similar. The journey is almost nothing alike. David worked for his wealth. He managed it, repaired it, stressed over it, negotiated for it, and showed up for it on weekends and holidays. Sarah waited for hers. She set a system, stayed disciplined through market drops that made her stomach turn, and watched compounding do the heavy lifting. Neither outcome is wrong, but the person who knew what they were signing up for went in with a massive advantage over the person who just heard it sounded good. And here's the real insight that most videos never get to. The single biggest variable in this comparison isn't the return rate. It isn't the market, it isn't the neighborhood. It's the question of whether you included everything before you decided. The person who buys a rental without budgeting for roof replacements, vacancy months, and self-management hours is not running a business. They're running on optimism. The person who puts money in index funds but panic sells the moment the market drops 30% is not investing. They're emotional spending in reverse. The strategy doesn't make you wealthy. The discipline behind the strategy does. If you're drawn to real estate, go in knowing that the real return is built over time through equity growth and appreciation, not just monthly cash flow. Know your market's rent-to-price ratio before you buy. Budget for every expense before you sign. Treat it like a business from day one, because it is. If index funds are your path, automate everything and protect your future self from your present emotions. Increase your contribution whenever you can, even by $100 a month. The compounding effect on that extra money is not linear. It is exponential. And if you want to do both, which an increasing number of financially independent people do, understand that the combined strategy is not twice the work. It's twice the intentionality. Real estate does not always win. The stock market does not always win. The investor who runs the full numbers, every dollar in, every dollar out, every hour spent, every risk carried, that person has the best chance of winning. And now you've run those numbers. So before you make your next financial move, ask yourself one question. Did I include everything? Because the decision that holds up 20 years from now is the one that started with honest math, not a highlight reel. If this video gave you even one number you hadn't thought about before, share it with someone who's currently choosing between these two paths. And if you want to keep going deeper on building real wealth without the noise, subscribe right now. We break down the real math behind money decisions that actually matter in plain language so you can stop guessing and start knowing. The next video might be the one that changes everything for you. Don't miss it.